This is the story of Dalton Lambert. In 2006, Josh and Renee Lambert were ecstatic to find the home of their dreams. It was an old Victorian mansion in the suburbs of Atlanta, but it came at a steep discount because the previous owner had died there. Still, the couple loved the house. It had high ceilings, stained glass windows, and a wraparound porch. Most importantly, it had 5 bedrooms, plenty of space for their growing family. The day they moved in, their 2-year-old son, Dalton, couldn't stop smiling. He ran through the house like he owned it, Renee said. He put his little hand on the banister and slid down the stairs. That night, the family had dinner together in the kitchen. Then they tucked Dalton into bed and left him watching cartoons on his bedside TV. They could hear him laughing from the living room. But then suddenly, the sound stopped. Renee went to check on Dalton, but she found the room completely empty. She ran to the nursery down the hall and burst through the door. There was Dalton, fast asleep in his crib. Relieved but confused, she took him back to his room and turned off the TV. Then she and Josh got into bed. But sleep wouldn't come. They lay there listening to every creak and groan of the old house. Around 4 a.m., they heard a knock on Dalton's door. It was soft at first, but then it started pounding insistently. "Who's there?" Renee called out, but no one answered. Josh and Renee looked at each other, unsure what to do. Finally, Josh got out of bed to investigate. As he walked toward the door, it slammed shut and locked. Startled, he pressed his ear against the wood. He could hear a tapping sound, like someone was on the other side trying to get out. Then suddenly, everything went silent. Josh turned the doorknob, but it was locked from the outside. "I can't open it," he whispered frantically to Renee. "I don't know what to do." He could hear Dalton stirring in his bed. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from inside the room. Renee screamed as she heard Dalton call out, "Mommy, help me." Josh kicked at the door until it swung open. Inside, they found Dalton sitting up in bed crying. He must have climbed out of his crib while they were gone. "It's okay, honey," Renee said soothingly, picking him up. "We're here now." But as she held Dalton close, she felt a sudden chill run down her spine. She knew instinctively that this was only the beginning. Over the next few days, strange things continued to happen around Dalton. Their baby monitor would pick up whispers coming from empty rooms. They heard footsteps pacing back and forth when no one was home. And sometimes at night, they would wake up to see shadows moving across their walls. Once, they even saw a door slam shut by itself. Each time something happened, Dalton seemed more frightened than the last. One evening, Renee was getting ready for bed when she heard a noise from Dalton's room. She dismissed it at first, assuming it was just a branch scraping against the window. But then, she heard a heavy thud followed by a low growl. Her blood ran cold as she pictured something evil lurking in the darkness. Slowly, she made her way down the hallway. She hesitated outside Dalton's room, her heart pounding in her chest. Then she pushed the door open and stepped inside. There in the corner of the room, bathed in the pale glow of the moon, she saw a rocking chair moving back and forth, but the seat was empty. Beside the chair, she noticed a rocking horse that Dalton had outgrown. On its back, she could have sworn she saw a shadow detach itself and drift up the wall like smoke. Startled, she let out a scream that echoed through the empty house. When Josh and Renee told their friends about what had happened, they were met with skeptical smiles and knowing glances. "Oh, you know how it is with an old house," one of their friends said dismissively. "You hear all kinds of noises if you listen closely enough." But deep down, they knew it wasn't just an old house. They could feel it in their bones. Something evil had taken root inside their home, and it was growing stronger by the day. Desperate for answers, they turned to psychic Elise Rainier. When she first walked into their home, she could sense the oppressive darkness that hung in the air. It seemed to wrap around her, suffocating her with its heavy presence. As she made her way through the house, she could feel the spirits watching her every move, their cold, dead eyes boring into her back. In Dalton's room, she saw the rocking chair move on its own. But she didn't flinch or show any fear. Instead, she knelt down beside the bed and spoke to Dalton. "Are you here, sweetheart?" she asked softly. "Do you want to come back to us?" To her surprise, Dalton didn't answer. He just stared back at her with vacant eyes. After spending several hours in the Lambert home, Elise finally emerged outside, shaken and exhausted. She explained to Josh and Renai that their son, Espirith, had wandered too far into a dark place called the Further. There, restless souls and demons roamed, searching for a body to possess. One of them, a twisted creature with a red face and black hooves, had set its sights on Dalton. As Elise spoke, Josh and Renai could feel their hearts sinking. It was like a physical weight dragging them down into the cold, hard ground. They had known something was wrong with their son, but they hadn't realized how dire the situation really was. Elise told them that the only way to save Dalton was for one of them to enter the Further and bring him back. But the Lamberts were terrified. Who would be brave enough to go into that dark place? Who could possibly survive coming back? At first, no one spoke. They were all too afraid to admit that they were the only hope their son had of surviving. Finally, Josh stepped forward. He had always been the stronger one, the one who could take care of things. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "I won't let anything happen to my son." Elise nodded her head slowly. She knew that Josh had a special gift, the ability to astral project. As a child, he had been able to leave his body whenever he wanted to. But over time, he had forgotten this ability. Now, she was going to help him remember. Under her guidance, Josh closed his eyes and concentrated on leaving his body. He could feel himself rising above his physical form, floating up to the ceiling. He reached out to grab onto Dalton's spirit, but it was slippery and hard to hold on to. As he pulled his son back to his body, he felt a surge of energy from the demon. It wanted Dalton back. It was fighting for control. Finally, with a Herculean effort, Josh brought Dalton back to his physical form. Just as he collapsed into his own body, he could see the demon retreating back into the darkness. He opened his eyes to find Elise kneeling beside him, her face pale with exhaustion. "It's over," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You did it, Josh?" Relief washed over him as he looked down at Dalton. His son's chest rose and fell with each breath. He was safe. But as Josh and Elise turned to leave, she stopped suddenly, her eyes wide with terror. She pointed a shaky finger at Josh. "No, you don't understand," she whispered urgently. "He's not himself anymore. You brought him back, but it's too late. The demon has already claimed him." As she stumbled backward, she could see the change in Josh's eyes, the coldness that had replaced his warmth, the darkness that had swallowed his light. With a final scream, Elise collapsed to the floor, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Josh stood there, motionless, his body still weak from the battle, but his eyes sharp and alert. A cruel smile played on his lips as he surveyed the room, taking in the terrified faces of his family. Well, he purred, his voice a low growl. "Looks like I'm not the one who brought him back. After all, Elise, you should have known better than to underestimate the devil. You think you can trap him in a child's body? You're nothing but a pawn in his game. You never had a chance." With that, he vanished, leaving behind only the echo of his laughter and the stench of brimstone. To this day, no one knows what happened to Elise's body. Some say it simply disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Others believe it was taken by the demon, used as a vessel for its evil. But one thing is certain: Dalton Lambert is no longer the sweet, innocent boy he once was. In his place is a vessel of darkness, a puppet of the devil, forever trapped in a nightmare from which there is no escape.